Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking some pretty dense internal auditing concepts and, well, we're turning them into a dynamic playbook. How are we going to do that? By treating your organization like a living, breathing corporate anatomy. Because, every system has a very specific function, and when one of those fails, the whole body suffers.
But right before we dive in, here is a massive fact for those of you focused on your studies. The concepts we're unpacking today make up a whopping 35% of Part 1 of the CIA exam syllabus. So mastering this material isn't just good practice, it's absolutely essential for your certification and for really mastering corporate governance. So we'll be structuring our investigation today around what we call the 5 pillars of trust. That's operational auditing, compliance auditing, financial audits, management reporting, and finally, the culture audit.
All right, let's jump right into Pillar 1, operational auditing, or as we like to call it, the muscles of the organization.
Just like muscles dictate how effectively you move, an operational audit assesses the pure efficiency of your daily operations. A huge part of this is something called a program results engagement. To cut through the corporate jargon, this basically just asks, hey, did the specific project actually work? It measures the costs, the outputs, and the relative success of a funded activity that sits outside of normal everyday operations. Think of something like rolling out a brand new IT system.
But here's the catch. How do you actually measure that success when pure financial numbers just aren't cutting it? You can't always slap a strict dollar amount on a new program's benefits, right? Well, that's exactly where these 4 operational metrics come into play. Productivity ratio, productivity index, resource usage rate, and operating ratio. Establishing really clear definitions for these right at the outset is literally the only way to accurately grade a project's success.
Moving right along to Pillar 2, compliance auditing. This is the corporate immune system. Think of compliance as the system defending the organization against illegalities. Internal auditors are constantly checking adherence to things like internal policies, procedures, external laws, regulations, and contracts. A strong immune system here isn't just about dodging hefty fines. It proactively safeguards the company's reputation, determines officer liability, and can even be the key to validating insurance claims.
But when you do actually uncover an infection in this immune system, you are faced with a highly sensitive issue. Namely, how do you protect the whistleblowers? Because let's face it, a compliance program is completely useless if employees are too terrified of retaliation to actually speak up.
Enter the ombudsperson. Now, a corporate attorney might monitor a hotline to protect legal privilege, sure, but employees often feel so much safer confiding in an ombudsperson. Why? Because this on-site official keeps names totally secret and reports directly to the board to guarantee zero retaliation. They are incredibly effective at bringing hidden issues out into the light.
Okay, on to Pillar 3, financial audits. We're calling this the circulatory system.
This is all about the circulatory system of cash flow. Now, internal auditors aren't doing a massive full-scale financial statement review here. Instead, they zoom in on specific functional cycles, like this 4-step order to cash flow. They're checking internal controls step by step just to prep the system, making absolutely sure the lifeblood of the company is flowing accurately.
When auditors are reviewing these cycles, they really have to recognize a stark difference in misstatements. An error? That's just an innocent, unintentional mistake. Fraud, on the other hand, is intentional deception. We're talking altering records or embezzling assets. When an auditor spots a discrepancy, their very first job is to figure out if it was done on purpose.
Which brings us to a pretty harsh reality. Detecting fraud perpetrated by management is significantly harder than catching employee fraud. Why is that? Well, management literally has the unique authority to direct unknowing employees to help them out. And even more dangerously, they can just override the very controls that were built to stop the fraud in the first place. Let's pivot to Pillar 4, management reporting. This is the nervous system. If the previous pillars were the muscles and the blood, this is the network sending vital, real-time signals all across the entity. Unlike your standard regulatory financial statements, these reports are strictly confidential internal business intelligence tools. They aren't bogged down by GAAP standards or external deadlines. This setup allows leaders to monitor key performance indicators and pivot their strategy immediately, completely based on their own internal clocks.
And finally, we arrive at Pillar 5, the culture audit, the brain and the heart of the company.
This is the invisible driver of everything the company does. The Institute of Internal Auditors makes a really vital distinction here.
Culture is the invisible belief system of the organization. Conduct, on the other hand, is the tangible, physical manifestation of those beliefs. So a culture audit acts as a much-needed reality check to see exactly how closely a company's everyday physical conduct actually aligns with its stated, invisible values.
Because when those values misalign, you hit cultural risk factors. And make no mistake, a toxic culture will completely undermine your financial internal controls. Think about it. If leadership is demanding unreasonable expectations, or if they just refuse to hear bad news, employees are way more likely to cut corners or even commit fraud just to survive the day.
And this is exactly why tone at the top is arguably the absolute most critical element of corporate governance. Senior leaders have to consistently communicate and, more importantly, model the right behaviors. If leadership fails to actively set this tone, the culture doesn't just hit pause, it develops by default. And it almost always develops in a direction that ends up harming the organization.
Now, since you can't exactly hold culture in your hands, auditors have to hunt for concrete evidence. Things like high employee turnover, sudden spikes in absences, and ethics hotline data are immediate red flags. But here is the ultimate challenge. Internal auditors are employees of the company themselves, right? So maintaining strict objectivity and total confidentiality when reviewing these grievances, it's an incredibly delicate balancing act.
So, as we wrap up this explainer on the 5 pillars of organizational trust, I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. Every single organization out there has a culture, but is yours intentionally shaped by design, or is it merely developing by default? Understanding exactly how these pillars interconnect is really the only way to ensure your controls truly protect the enterprise. Thanks for joining us.